Wesley Kane didn't expect to get sucker punched by fate while holding a bag of quarters. He had only stopped because his driver got sick and had to pull over on a random block in Brooklyn, right across from a laundromat with flickering neon letters and a sidewalk littered with soap-stained puddles. Wesley, dressed in a navy wool coat over a crisp shirt and Italian loafers, looked completely out of place. But something, maybe boredom, maybe curiosity, had pulled him across the street with his dry cleaning still folded in the back seat. Inside smelled like detergent and old memories. Machines whirred. A baby cried somewhere behind a column of dryers. And then he saw her. She was folding a stack of fresh laundry with the kind of focus people usually reserved for brain surgery. Her long dark hair was tied up in a loose bun, a little messy, a little perfect. She wore a plain gray hoodie and jeans with a laundry pen tucked behind one ear. When she glanced up and caught him staring, her deep brown eyes narrowed slightly, like she didn't know whether to ask if he was lost or tell him to move along. "You gonna use that machine or just stare at it until it folds your clothes for you?" she asked, voice dry but not unkind. Wesley blinked. "I'm actually not sure how this works." She raised an eyebrow. "Seriously? I don't normally do my own laundry," he said, trying not to sound like a total jerk. She leaned her hip against the folding table and crossed her arms. "Let me guess. You're one of those Upper East Side guys who thinks Tide is a cocktail mixer." Wesley laughed. "I'm not that clueless." She cracked a small smile. "Well, you're holding quarters. That's a start." He glanced down, realizing he still had them clutched in his hand. "Right. Step 1, insert money. What's step 2? Don't shrink your shirts. I'm Gabriella Lane." He extended a hand. "Wesley." She shook it, firm and warm. He didn't let go too fast. Gabriella pointed to the back wall. "Best machines third from the left. Doesn't eat your socks." He followed her lead. As she helped him load the washer and explained the settings like a patient teacher, he noticed the little things, the way she tucked a strand of hair behind her ear without realizing it, the silver necklace with a tiny heart charm she wore, the softness in her voice when she mentioned her younger brother and how she did his laundry too because he always forgot. "So what brings a guy like you to this corner of Brooklyn?" she asked as they waited for the cycle. "My driver got sick. I was on my way to a meeting downtown." She tilted her head. "Driver, huh?" He looked at her. "That sounded bad, didn't it?" "Little bit. I'm not trying to be some rich jerk, I swear." "Didn't say you were," she said, but there was a teasing glint in her eye. "Just, you're a long way from a penthouse right now." He didn't tell her that he actually lived in a luxury penthouse overlooking Central Park, or that his firm had just closed a multi-million-dollar deal that morning. He liked the way she looked at him like he was just a guy at a laundromat. "So what do you do, Wesley?" "I work in investments. Real estate mostly." She nodded, unimpressed. "I work here and at a diner 3 blocks down when I'm not folding other people's socks." His eyes softened. "That's a lot." She shrugged. "You do what you have to. My mom's medical bills aren't going to pay themselves." Wesley's chest tightened. He didn't know why, but something about her honesty hit him square in the gut. This woman was real. No filters. No games. Just standing in front of him, folding towels like it was a normal Tuesday night and not the moment his entire life shifted. The buzzer went off. She moved to her machine and started folding again. He stood beside her, mimicking her movements awkwardly. "All right, you're not terrible at this," Gabriella teased as he fumbled with a pillowcase. "I'll take that as a compliment." As they folded side by side, he kept sneaking glances at her. She didn't smile a lot, but when she did, it was like watching the sun push through clouds. When she finished, she grabbed her laundry basket and headed for the door. "I'll see you around, Wesley." She said it like she didn't expect to. He surprised himself. "Wait." She turned. "Can I take you to dinner?" Gabriella laughed under her breath. "I don't think you'd like my kind of dinner. It's usually grilled cheese and soup at the diner." "I like grilled cheese." She raised an eyebrow, amused. "You don't even know what kind of bread I use." He stepped closer. "Then let me find out. One dinner. My treat." Nothing fancy, just real. She studied him for a long beat, then finally nodded. All right, one dinner. He smiled, more relieved than he expected to be. Tomorrow. Tomorrow, she said, and walked out into the night. Wesley stood there, surrounded by spinning machines and the faint scent of lavender detergent, knowing one thing for sure. He had stopped by a laundromat for no reason at all. And somehow, he had just met the one woman who made him want to come back every night. Wesley waited outside the diner 10 minutes early, hands buried in his coat pockets, watching the city breathe around him. A delivery truck honked at a cyclist. Someone cursed into the wind. Above, the streetlights flickered to life one by one, casting a yellow glow over the chipped awning that read, "May's Place open 24 hours. When Gabriella emerged from the back door in a denim jacket and a red scarf, she didn't spot him right away. She was tying her hair up in a ponytail as she walked, her steps quick, like she was used to moving with purpose. Then she saw him, paused, and let out a short breath. "You weren't kidding about dinner," she said. "I said nothing fancy," he replied. "But I brought options." She eyed the brown paper bag in his hand. "You brought food? Well, I figured you've been on your feet for hours. Maybe you'd rather eat somewhere quiet than sit under buzzing lights with a kid throwing ketchup at the wall." Gabriella crossed her arms. "And where exactly is this quiet place?" He motioned to the black SUV idling at the curb. "I asked around. There's a rooftop garden nearby. Empty this time of year. But it's got benches." She tilted her head. "You're telling me you bribed someone for access to a rooftop in Brooklyn? So we could eat takeout?" "Technically, I offered a maintenance guy 2 Mets tickets," he said. "But yes." Her laugh was soft, but it warmed the air between them. "You really don't do normal, do you?" "Not usually." "All right," she said, climbing into the car. "Let's see what a Mets bribe gets us." The rooftop was chilly but quiet, tucked between 2 buildings above a hardware store. Dead vines curled along the trellis, and the benches were worn smooth by time. Wesley laid out their dinner: 2 foil-wrapped sandwiches, a container of fries, and a pair of canned sodas. She sat beside him, tugging her scarf tighter. "You managed to get my favorite sandwich," she said, unwrapping it. "I asked the hostess what Gabriella Lane always orders." She rolled her eyes and said, "Turkey melt, extra pickles." "She doesn't like me much." "No," he admitted, "but I think I'm growing on her." Gabriella took a bite, chewed thoughtfully, then looked out at the skyline. "This is weird," she said. "Not bad weird. Just not what I expected from a guy like you." "What do you mean?" "You don't talk like someone who lives above the noise," she said. "You listen. Most people in your world don't." Wesley leaned back, letting the silence stretch for a beat. "I used to. Then I stopped. Got too busy making things happen. Forgot what it meant to just exist." "You sound like someone who's been through something," she said. "What was it?" He hesitated, then looked over. "My father passed away last year. Heart attack. No warning. He was the kind of man who ran boardrooms like battlefields. I spent most of my life trying to prove I could do it better. Then he was just gone." Gabriella's gaze softened. "I'm sorry. Thanks. After that, I started seeing things differently. People. Time. What matters?" She studied him. "You're not what I thought you'd be. What did you think I'd be? Polished? Detached? Maybe a little bored with everything?" "I was," he admitted. "Until I met you." Her eyes flicked away, unsure what to do with that. "What about you?" he asked. "What's the thing no one sees?" She exhaled, fingers fidgeting with the edge of the foil. "My dad bailed when I was 6. My mom worked 2 jobs until her back gave out. I didn't go to college. My brother's 17 and thinks the world owes him something. Every day I wake up and try to keep the pieces from falling apart." "You make it look easy." "It's not," she said. "But I don't get the luxury of falling apart." Wesley was quiet for a moment, then reached into his coat pocket and handed her a small square envelope. She looked at it. "What is this?" "An invitation. There's a charity gala on Friday. My firm's hosting. It's black tie, champagne, the works. I'd like you to come." Gabriella blinked. That's a big jump from sandwiches on a rooftop. I know, he said, but I want you to see my world. And I want to see how you fit in it. She didn't answer right away. The wind picked up, pulling a strand of hair across her cheek. I don't have a dress, she said finally. I know a place that owes me a favor. She glanced at him. You're serious? As a heart attack. She looked down at the invitation. Gold lettering, thick cardstock, her name written in elegant script. For a moment, she looked like she might say no. Then she tucked the envelope into her jacket. I'll come, she said. But only if you swear not to let me trip in front of a ballroom full of millionaires. I'll catch you, he said, without hesitation. Her eyes met his, and something unspoken passed between them. Not a promise. Not yet. But the beginning of one. The kind that shifted things. All right, Wesley Kane, she said, standing. Show me your world. He rose beside her, offering his arm. She took it, and they walked toward the stairwell, the city stretching out beneath them like a promise waiting to be made. The lights of the ballroom shimmered like a sea of stars caught in polished crystal. Wesley stood near the arched entrance, adjusting his cufflinks, scanning the crowd for one face. The orchestra's soft waltz floated beneath the hum of mingled voices, and photographers moved like shadows through silk and sequins. He'd never cared much for these charity galas, another excuse for back-patting donors and whispered deals in corners, but tonight, none of that mattered. Tonight, he wasn't here to impress anyone. He was waiting for her. When Gabriella finally stepped into view, Wesley forgot how to breathe. She wore a midnight blue gown that hugged her softly at the waist before flowing down like a waterfall. The neckline dipped just enough to draw attention without begging for it, and her hair, swept up and pinned with delicate silver combs, revealed the slender line of her neck. Her eyes, lined in smoky gray, found his across the room, uncertain, a little overwhelmed, but steady. He crossed to her immediately. You clean up all right, she said, her voice lower than usual, almost breathless, like she wasn't sure if she was joking or confessing something. So do you, he replied. Though I'm starting to think that dress might be the most dangerous thing in this room. She glanced around. You weren't kidding about the champagne. I just saw someone put a glass down on a tray without even drinking it. They do that, Wesley said. The wine's usually terrible. I wouldn't know. I've never been to anything like this. He offered his arm. Then let's make it worth remembering. As he led her through the crowd, people turned. A few greeted him by name, eyes flicking to Gabriella with polite curiosity. He introduced her simply. No explanations. No qualifiers. Just her name and a quiet confidence that said she belonged. At the far end of the ballroom, an older man with salt and pepper hair and a tailored tuxedo intercepted them. Kane, he said, shaking Wesley's hand. Didn't expect to see you tonight. I wouldn't have come if I didn't have someone worth bringing, Wesley replied smoothly. The man turned to Gabriella. And who might this be? She held out a hand without hesitation. Gabriella Lane. A pleasure, the man said, but his tone had shifted, measured, assessing. After he moved on, Gabriella leaned in. Was that someone important? Board member, Wesley said. He'll be telling his wife by dessert that I brought someone who didn't go to Yale. Let him, she said. I've survived worse opinions. He looked at her, and something flickered through his chest, pride and something deeper he hadn't named yet. They found a quieter corner near the balcony where the city lights stretched out like gold threads. Gabriella leaned against the stone railing, her back to the skyline. I can see why people like this, she said. It feels like nothing bad could touch you up here. Wesley stepped beside her. That's the illusion. She turned to face him. Then why stay in it? Because sometimes the illusion's easier to manage than the truth, he said. But lately, I've been rethinking that. She studied him, her expression unreadable. What were you before all this? He hesitated. Obsessed with control. I ran numbers like they were gospel. Bought buildings just to tear them down and rebuild taller. I thought if I could shape the skyline, I could shape myself. And now I don't know, he said. But when I'm with you, I stop trying to measure everything. They stood in silence for a beat, the music swelling behind them. I don't know how to date someone like you, Gabriella said quietly. Why not? Because I won't become someone else to fit into this world. I'm not going to pretend I care about cufflinks or private clubs. I don't want you to change, Wesley said. I want to change what I expect. Before she could respond, a man in a velvet jacket approached, holding a wine glass. Wesley Kane, he said. Didn't think I'd see you with a date who wasn't airbrushed into perfection. Gabriella straightened, but Wesley stepped forward. She's perfect to me, he said, voice calm but edged with steel. And if you say anything else, I'll make sure the next building you pitch gets buried in red tape until your grandchildren retire. The man blinked, then laughed awkwardly and walked away. Gabriella turned to him, stunned. You didn't have to do that. Yes, I did. She shook her head, but the corner of her mouth tilted up. You're not what I thought at all. He leaned in, voice low. I'm still figuring out what I am when I'm around you. There was a pause, the kind where the air thickens with unspoken things. Let's get out of here, she said. He looked at her, surprised. You sure? I've seen enough chandeliers. Take me somewhere with real lights. He didn't ask what she meant. He just took her hand. They left without a word to the crowd, slipping out into the city, her heels clicking against marble until they hit pavement. He led her to a quiet street, then to the East River where the bridges gleamed and the wind carried the scent of salt and steel. They stood at the railing, watching ferries cut through the black water. I haven't been down here since I was a kid, she said. I come here when I need to think. She looked at him. What are you thinking about now? That I want to know everything about you. Not just the hard parts. Gabriella's voice dropped. Like what? Like what used to make you laugh before life got too serious. What song you always skip. What you dream about when you let yourself. She was quiet for a long time. Then, I wanted to be a photographer once. Thought maybe I could travel the world and capture it all. Why didn't you? She shrugged. Life got in the way. Money. Responsibility. Fear. He stepped closer. Let me help. It's not your job to fix my life. I don't want to fix it. I want to be a part of it. She turned to look at him, the city lights reflected in her eyes. You're not going to give up on this, are you? Wesley shook his head. Not a chance. Gabriella didn't say anything, but she didn't let go of his hand. The sun cast long golden streaks across the kitchen floor of Wesley's Soho loft, warming the sleek marble counters and floor-to-ceiling windows. Gabriella stood barefoot by the stove, flipping pancakes as though it were the most natural thing in the world to be in a millionaire's home wearing an oversized Oxford shirt and humming to herself. Wesley leaned against the doorway, watching her with a quiet intensity. It had been 2 weeks since the gala, 2 weeks of late-night drives, early morning phone calls, and a growing rhythm between them that felt less like a whirlwind and more like a tether, strong, invisible, undeniable. He crossed the room and slid a mug of coffee across the counter toward her. You're definitely spoiling me. She glanced over her shoulder, eyes glinting. You own a wine cellar with bottles older than me and you think pancakes are spoiling you? None of those bottles ever came with maple syrup, he said, pulling out a stool. She plated the food and joined him at the island. He watched her for a moment, then rested his forearms on the counter. I want to show you something. She raised a brow. Is this when you reveal the Batcave? Close, he said. Get dressed. I'll drive. They ended up in a quiet neighborhood in Queens, where the streets were lined with narrow brick houses and kids played soccer in the alleys. He pulled into a small lot in front of a single-story building with a for lease sign in the window. Gabriella stared at it, confused. What is this? A space, he said. For you. She turned slowly toward him. He opened the passenger door and stepped out. Come on. Inside, the place was dusty but full of light, with exposed beams and a wall of windows that overlooked a small courtyard. The floors were unfinished hardwood and the air smelled faintly of sawdust and possibility. Gabriella walked the length of the room silently, running her fingers along the edge of a broken shelf. What's the catch? No catch, Wesley said. I remembered what you said. About photography. About wanting more. So I found this. It could be a gallery. A studio. Whatever you want it to be. She turned slowly. You did all this for me? I did it because I believe in you, he said. And because I want you to have something that's yours. Gabriella looked overwhelmed, her hand pressed to her mouth. I don't know what to say. Say you'll take it. Say you'll let me help. Tears welled in her eyes but didn't fall. I'm not used to this. People showing up. Following through. I'm not people, he said quietly. I'm me. And I'm in this. She walked to him, voice trembling. I've spent so long keeping everything upright, my family, my job, my own head, that I forgot what it felt like to be seen. He reached for her hand. I see you. Gabriella looked up at him, eyes shining, and for the first time there was no hesitation when she leaned in and kissed him. Later that night, they sat curled on the couch at his penthouse, the city lights flickering below them. She rested her head on his shoulder, legs tucked beneath her, while he absent-mindedly traced circles on her arm. Can I ask you something? She said softly. Anything. If I hadn't been folding laundry that night, do you think we'd have ever met? I don't know, he said. But I do know I would have missed out on the best thing that's ever happened to me. She snorted gently. You're awfully dramatic for a numbers guy. Only when it counts. She tilted her head to look at him. What happens now? I want you to move in with me. Gabriella blinked. You're serious. I've never been more serious. I thought you liked your space. I do, he said. And now I want to share it. I want your laundry on the floor and your coffee mugs in the sink and your photographs on the wall. She laughed softly. You might regret it when I start waking you up at 6 to chase light. Then I'll chase it with you. Gabriella grew quiet again. My mom's getting worse. He wrapped an arm tighter around her. Tell me what you need. We found a specialist. But it's expensive. Wesley didn't hesitate. Send me the name. I'll cover it. She pulled back to look at him. That's not why I'm with you. I know it's not. And that's why I want to do it. Her lips parted, but no words came. Instead, she placed her hand over his heart and rested there for a long time. Weeks passed. The gallery took shape, whitewashed walls, framed prints, soft pendant lights. Gabriella hung her first exhibit without fanfare. The night it opened, a modest crowd came. Locals, friends, a few curious collectors Wesley had quietly invited. She sold 3 pieces by the end of the evening. Afterward, Wesley held her hand as they walked home, her heels dangling from her fingers. I thought I'd feel terrified, she said. But mostly I just feel full. He kissed her temple. That's what life's supposed to feel like. Back at the penthouse, she paused before they stepped inside. I want this, she said. All of it. You. Me. The mess. The mornings. The late nights. I want the whole damn thing. Wesley smiled. Then let's have it. The next morning, she woke to find a small velvet box on the kitchen counter beside a cup of coffee and a note in his handwriting. No chandeliers. No speeches. Just you, me, and forever. She turned to find him standing in the doorway, hair tousled, still in his t-shirt. You didn't even get down on one knee, she teased, tears already in her eyes. I figured I already knelt the second I met you. She laughed, ran to him, and wrapped her arms around his neck. Yes, she whispered. Yes to all of it. A month later, in a quiet garden surrounded by friends and a few hummingbirds that refused to leave, Gabriella Lane became Gabriella Kane. And Wesley, the man who once measured his life in profit margins and skyscraper heights, stood barefoot in grass, holding the hand of the woman who taught him that the best things in life couldn't be calculated, only felt. The laundromat still sat on the corner, neon light flickering. Sometimes they'd pass it, and every single time, he'd squeeze her hand and say, "Best wrong turn I ever took." Gabriella adjusted the angle of the final photograph on the wall, stepping back with paint-streaked fingers and a satisfied breath. The new exhibit, her second, was different this time. Raw, personal. Every frame captured a moment of stillness in chaos, a nurse resting on a subway bench, a boy pressing his forehead to a rain-streaked window, a couple dancing in a laundromat after hours. She called the collection unscripted. Wesley leaned in the doorframe, arms crossed, watching her without interrupting. He had learned that about her when she was in the zone, creating. She needed air around her, but she always knew he was there, present, steady. You added the one from the Bronx, he said finally. She nodded. The woman with the sunflowers? Yeah. She reminded me of my mom. He walked over and stood beside her. You know she'd be proud, right? I hope so, she said, voice quiet. She'd have hated the attention, though. Probably would have asked why I didn't just get a real job. He slipped his hand into hers. I think she'd have loved this place. She gave him a small smile. She would have loved you. Wesley kissed her temple. Then I'm in good company. The gallery opened that evening to a full house. Gabriella had insisted on handling the welcome herself, no publicists, no introductions by anyone else. She stood before the crowd in a soft black jumpsuit, her voice steady as she explained her inspiration and thanked those who'd helped, especially her husband, who she said taught her that success and love didn't have to be separate things. After the crowd thinned and the final glass of wine had been poured, she found Wesley sitting alone on the small bench beneath her favorite piece. The one she'd taken of him when he hadn't known, just a candid moment at the river's edge, hands deep in his coat pockets, expression unreadable. She'd called it stillness in motion. You're staring at yourself, she said, easing down beside him. I'm trying to figure out how you made me look so poetic. She laughed. You were thinking about your next building acquisition. Maybe, he admitted. Or maybe I was thinking about how lucky I am that you said yes. Gabriella leaned her head against his shoulder. You say that like this was all one-sided. I chased you, he said. But you let me catch up. She reached for his hand. We met in the middle. Later that night, they returned home to find a small stack of envelopes on the counter. Gabriella began flipping through them until one stopped her cold. She froze, eyes narrowing. What is it? Wesley asked. She held up the envelope. It's from the hospital. The one my mom went to. He walked over. Do you want me to open it? After a beat, she nodded. He slid a finger beneath the flap and unfolded the letter. His brow furrowed as he read, then his face softened. What is it? She asked again. They're starting a new foundation, he said. In honor of patients who couldn't afford care but inspired the staff with their resilience. They're naming it after your mom. Gabriella's breath caught. What? They said a donor covered the initial funding. Anonymously. Her eyes moved to him. Was it you? He hesitated. I wanted to do something that mattered. She mattered. Gabriella's voice broke. You didn't have to do that. I know, he said. That's why I did. She launched into his arms, holding him tighter than she had in weeks. Not because she had to, but because something inside her needed to. He held her just as tightly, one hand cradling the back of her head. When she finally pulled back, her eyes were shining. You're not just the man I love, Wesley. You're the part of me I didn't know was missing. He rested his forehead against hers. And you're the only thing I've ever built that makes me feel complete. Months passed. The gallery thrived not just as a business, but as a beacon. Gabriella began holding monthly features for emerging artists, and Wesley donated a wing of his firm's newest building to house a non-profit arts initiative in her name. They traveled small trips, nothing grand. A weekend in Vermont, a rainy afternoon in Seattle, a week in Lisbon where she photographed the tiled alleys and he learned to order coffee in Portuguese. They made a habit of getting lost on purpose. One morning, Gabriella stood barefoot in their living room, holding a test strip in her hand, her whole body trembling. She didn't need to say a word. When Wesley walked in, he saw it in her eyes. He stepped forward, gently took the test, and looked down at the faint pink lines. Then he looked back at her. A slow, stunned grin spread across his face. We're having a baby? She nodded, barely breathing. We're having a baby. He wrapped her in his arms and spun her once, laughing unrestrained and real and entirely unlike the man who'd once measured his life in risk margins. They named their daughter Elise, after Gabriella's mother. She had her father's storm gray eyes and her mother's quiet strength. The first photograph Gabriella took after her birth was of Elise's tiny hand wrapped around her father's finger. Years later, that photo would hang in the gallery's entrance. Their days became a mosaic of school runs, gallery openings, late-night brainstorming sessions, and quiet dinners on the rooftop where they'd shared their first real conversation. Gabriella still worked with her hands. Wesley still tracked numbers, but now he did it from a desk beside hers. On their 5th anniversary, Wesley surprised her with a letter he'd written the night after they first met but never had the courage to give her. She read it on their balcony, tears running silently down her cheeks. It ended with, "I don't know your favorite color yet, or what you sound like when you cry, but I know I want to learn every part of you. Starting now." She folded the letter and looked up at him. "You already have." He kissed her slowly, the kind of kiss that doesn't need to promise anything, because everything has already been kept. And beneath the quiet sky, with the city humming below and their daughter sleeping just down the hall, Gabriella and Wesley Kane held each other like people who knew that love wasn't something you stumbled into. It was something you chose over and over again. And they always would.